I have more money than I could ever spend. I once did the math out loud. I said I could spend $3 million a day, every single day, for the next 100 years and still not run out. So let me ask you something. If that's true, why do I still clip coupons? Why do I wear a $10 watch? Why do I drive myself through a McDonald's drive-through? Why do I wait in line at the airport like everyone else? Because I learned something early that most people learn too late. The habits that build wealth are not the habits you develop after you become wealthy. They are the habits that make you wealthy in the first place. And if you abandon them the moment money arrives, the money won't stay long. Let me tell you about something I've thought about a great deal. Save like a pessimist. Invest like an optimist. That sounds like a contradiction. It isn't. What it means is this. When it comes to protecting what you have, assume things will go wrong, assume the market will fall, assume the unexpected will happen, assume that the income you have today is not guaranteed tomorrow, because historically it isn't. Companies collapse, industries shift, circumstances change. The person who saved aggressively during the good times is the person who survives the bad ones. But here's the other half. When it comes to the long arc of the future, be deeply optimistic. The world gets better. Technology improves lives. Economies recover. The long-term trajectory of human progress is upward. So you protect yourself from the short-term disasters and you stay invested for the long-term rewards. That is not two contradictory ideas. That is one complete strategy. The people who only save and never invest watch inflation slowly eat everything they worked for. The people who only invest and never save have nothing left when the inevitable downturn comes. You need both. Discipline on the downside, patience on the upside. Here is something I want you to understand about spending. I'm not against it. I spent a lot of money building a house I love. I've traveled extensively. I've invested in experiences and people and ideas that mattered to me. But there is a difference, and it is a crucial one, between spending intentionally and spending reactively. Intentional spending is when you decide in advance what matters to you, and you allocate money toward those things with full awareness. Reactive spending is when you spend in response to emotion, to boredom, to comparison, to a feeling of lack, to the vague anxiety that other people are living better than you. Most people live in reactive spending, and reactive spending is one of the most reliable ways to have a lot of income and very little wealth. Because wealth is not built by what you earn, it is built by what you keep. And what you keep is determined by the gap between what comes in and what goes out. If that gap is zero, you are not building wealth. You are running in place regardless of your income. I waited a long time before I bought a Porsche, not because I couldn't afford one earlier, but because I didn't feel I had earned it yet. Microsoft was still finding its footing. There were things that mattered more than the car. There was a principle behind that decision that I think applies universally. Don't let your spending outpace your foundation. When people get a raise, a bonus, a windfall, the instinct is to immediately expand the lifestyle. Bigger apartment, newer car, better restaurants, and there is nothing wrong with enjoying your progress. But the mistake is spending the entire increase. Every time income rises and spending rises equally, the gap stays the same. And the gap is everything. The most powerful financial move you can make every time your income increases is to let your savings rate increase faster than your lifestyle does, even by a small margin. Because that margin, compounded over decades, is the difference between financial security and financial fragility. I believe the best investment you can make is in your own education. Someone once asked me in a Reddit thread, "What is your best personal financial advice for people making under $100,000 a year?" My answer was simple: invest in your education. And I mean that in the broadest possible sense. Not necessarily a university degree, not necessarily a formal credential. I mean, the ongoing, deliberate effort to know more than you knew yesterday, to understand the world better, to develop skills that are genuinely valuable, to read, to learn from people who are further along than you. Here is why this matters for savings and spending specifically. Financial literacy is a skill, and most people never develop it. They don't understand compound interest. They don't understand what inflation actually does to savings held in cash. They don't understand the difference between an asset and a liability. They don't understand how to read a basic balance sheet. And because they don't understand these things, they make decisions that cost them enormously over time. Not in dramatic, visible ways, in quiet, invisible ones. The $10 you spend on a book about personal finance might be the highest return investment you ever make, because the decisions it changes will compound for the rest of your life. I do not believe in passing large amounts of wealth to children simply because they are your children. I've said this publicly. Melinda and I made the decision that our children would receive a relatively modest inheritance, not because we don't love them, but because we do. Because I believe handing someone an unearned fortune is not a gift. It is in many cases a burden. It removes the need to develop competence. It removes the drive to figure things out. It removes the satisfaction of building something yourself. And I think that satisfaction, the experience of earning something through your own effort and judgment, is one of the most important things a person can have. Now, why does this matter in a conversation about savings and spending? Because it reflects something deeper about how I think about money. Money is not the goal. Money is a tool, and like any tool, its value depends entirely on what you use it for. If you spend it on things that make your life genuinely better, that is a good use. If you spend it on things that merely signal status to people you don't even respect, that is a waste, not a moral failure, just a waste. The question worth asking before any significant purchase is, will this matter to me in 5 years? Does this reflect something I actually value? Or am I doing this because someone else has it, or because I was told I should want it? That single question, asked honestly and consistently, will save you more money than any budget ever could. Here is something that took me years to fully articulate. Most people think wealthy people don't worry about money. That's not true. The difference is that wealthy people worry about money differently. A person without financial reserves worries about money constantly, but reactively. The worry is triggered by each specific crisis as it arrives. The broken car, the medical bill, the job loss. Each one is an emergency because there is no buffer. A person with strong savings worries about money strategically. They think about allocation, about the future, about what they're building, not about survival. The financial buffer, the savings, doesn't just provide security, it changes the entire register of your thinking. When you are not afraid of the immediate, you can focus on the important. And that shift from reactive to strategic thinking is worth more than almost any single financial decision you will ever make. Which means building savings is not just about money, it is about buying yourself the psychological space to think clearly, to make good decisions from a position of stability instead of from a position of fear. Fear is a terrible financial advisor, and savings is one of the best ways to fire it. I want to end with something I genuinely believe. Optimism is often dismissed as false hope, but there is also false hopelessness. When it comes to your finances, the false hopelessness sounds like this: I don't earn enough to save. By the time I have anything put aside, inflation will destroy it. The system is rigged against people like me. Some of that may feel true. Some of it may even be partially true. But here is what is also true. The decision to save something, even a small amount consistently, is a decision that compounds, not just financially, but in terms of identity. The moment you begin saving consistently, you become a person who saves. And that identity shift changes how you see opportunities, how you evaluate spending decisions, how you show up to conversations about money. You start to behave like someone building something, because you are. It doesn't require a high income to start. It doesn't require perfect circumstances. It requires a decision. And then the discipline to repeat that decision every week, every month, every year, until the results become impossible to ignore. That is how wealth is built. Not in grand gestures, in consistent, compounding, quiet choices. Start with what you have. Start today. Because the best time to start saving was the day you earned your first dollar. The second best time is right now.